morning, everyone, and welcome to the Backshed Bible Study. This is Cliff Carey here. Today, it's Monday, April 26th, 2021. I am so glad you joined me here for episode number 55. I still get blown away that we've been doing this over a year. So we're going to jump right in here this morning. I want to welcome to the Backshed our special guest. This is Ryan. Ryan, I never even asked you how to say your last name. Is it Farran?
We say it Farran, just because
Farran, okay.
I came from Kansas, but Farran is fine too.
We're going to go with Farran. So we'll make sure to get this right. But Ryan, welcome to the Backshed. It's good to have you here. Ryan is joining us from Papua New Guinea this morning. It is very early where he is, which is why we're recording this ahead of time. But welcome. It's good to have you here, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks for reaching out. Glad to be here.
So Ryan is known on YouTube these days as the Missionary Bush Pilot. And I thought, because I'm a pilot, I love missions. I shouldn't say I'm a pilot. I still have my pilot's license. I haven't exercised that thing in about 10 years, but so more of a wannabe these days. But I love mission aviation. And a lot of you at Sunrise know that we have Jeremiah and Mindy Harton that we are supporting as a church, and Jeremiah has been a bush pilot over in Papua, Indonesia, and we just I love all things aviation, and when you can pack missions onto it, it's a fun thing. So Ryan, you've got a YouTube channel that has garnered a little bit of attention over the last couple of years, and I want to get to that in a couple of minutes, but first off, like tell us about you grew up for a little while in Papua New Guinea, and then you turn around and come back as an adult and bring your family there as a missionary. What brought you through that?
Yeah, we lived over here in the early 90s when I was elementary age for 4 years. So we lived here for two different times, like 2 years. We lived here. My parents were dorm parents. We had 12 other kids living with us. And then the second time we came back, my mom was a teacher. My dad did like maintenance here on base, and it just stood out to me. Like even as a kid, there's always a lack of missionaries, and I still is today. But that really stuck with me, and I had the opportunity to go on a couple of flights when we were here first, second grade, and I was thinking, wow, this would be the coolest job to be a pilot someday. I didn't really at the time really think coming ever back to PNG. In fact, I didn't want to come back. I didn't want to be a missionary growing up. So, but yeah, the Lord kind of changed and opened the doors and changed my heart and led me back here eventually.
Well, and you strike on something there that's pretty significant, because there are a lot of preconceived notions out there, I should say, about missionary kids. And when I was at a Christian college, it was some of the missionary kids that were some of the wildest ones that I got to know, or they'd grown up in a spot where they were kind of living off of their parents' faith, or they had certain expectations that were placed upon them growing up, and then they'd go back to the U.S. on every 7 years, and kind of get paraded around all the churches, and so it's always curious to me when I see someone that grew up on the mission field and then they turn around and come back, because it really means some kind of it took heart, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm thankful that my parents were not overly strict parents, because I also grew up and noticed the same thing. Like, why is it that like a lot of pastors' kids, or even just some missionary kids, like, yeah, once they get out of like the bubble of their own home, then they get to go try to experience everything in life that they thought that they were missing out on. But my parents, I appreciate that they didn't hold the reins so tight that we didn't have to feel like we had to do that growing up. But yeah, definitely. And also too, I see a lot of missionary kids that want absolutely nothing to do with God or ministry or anything else, because it left them a bad taste in their mouth. Because I've seen too so many missionaries, like, that is so much more important than their family or their kids. And that was one of the biggest reasons why we wanted to come specifically to Papua New Guinea, is because we wanted to live in a place that we could live with our kids full time. Our kids go to school on the center right with us. We didn't want to have to send them off. And there's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, I saw that growing up and I said, that's not what I want. I never want to be a missionary if I have to, send my kids off to boarding school or something, because man, that's the next generation. So
Right. And and people that watch along here know I've been over there to Papua New Guinea 4 times, and the primary ministry I had going over there with Hume Lake was we put on retreats and camps for the MKs over there, and many times I ran across kids who were just bitter as could be, and others that really I remember one in particular, the first time I went there, who, sought out and confided in me and said, if people found out the sin that I'm doing, my parents would get kicked off the mission field. And just lived under terrible pressure that I think they put on themselves in some ways, but I know, in others, some parents put it on them.
yeah.
So I'm thrilled when I found out you grew up there, you moved back to the US, I'm assuming, and then came back and brought your family back. And you're with Ethnos 360, and I have to get that right because I always want to say New Tribes. But what got you going with the aviation side? And I want to I didn't tell you this ahead of time, but I want to ask a couple of questions here in a minute about the Quest Kodiak. But what got you excited, and what did you have to go through to not only get trained to go be a missionary in Papua New Guinea, but also to learn how to fly and fix a plane and all that?
Well, it started, I would say, I'm thinking like 10th or 11th grade in high school is when I was like, I think I want to be a missionary pilot specifically. It's probably, I'm thinking more like 11th grade, is that's kind of like, I don't know, when that seed just was planted, I was like, I think that sounds pretty cool. Getting an airline job, I just don't have any interest in it whatsoever. Like a lot of people have asked me, like, when are you gonna go do that? I'm like, never. Like I just don't have an interest in that kind of lifestyle. But I've always been kind of like to go do more adrenaline kind of things and more exciting things. And I thought, man, this would be absolutely right down my alley. It's perfect. But it was when I was 19. I went to community college in Michigan where I lived, and got my private pilot certificate. And I flew for like a year and a half or so, just building hours. I think I only got up to like 90 hours, so not very much, because it was expensive. You're working at the mall making like $6 an hour, and
Right.
it was, yeah. So at that time, I wanted to go into missions, but um, I wanted to do aviation at the time, but it was actually kind of boring, to be honest. Just without any purpose behind it. And I was just like flying out with my friends and catching the sunset, and I'd fly like a couple times a month. And I didn't feel like I was like really learning anything. I felt like I was almost losing it. So it was kind of like, well, I can continue on in missions, or I can do aviation, but I don't see how God can provide the money for one.
Right.
And because at that time, I'm thinking, well, it's like $40,000 and it's this many years. And like, it's just so, I couldn't see how I could ever get to the end goal. And so I decided I'm just going to go ahead and quit flying. Let's pursue missions. And this was at the time just myself. I met my wife at Bible school, and we wanted to actually maybe go live out in the jungles and present the gospel. And that's what we were thinking. Maybe this is maybe what we should do. We went through all the training and realized that's really not where our gifts and abilities are. We both don't like learning language. I don't really feel like teaching is like a really gift of mine. Coming up with a language to be able to teach these people how to read and write their own language, I was like, yeah, that sounds so boring.
Well,
I need to be out there doing something
right.
that's a little more exciting.
And we had Dave and Sherry Ogg on here a couple of months back, and we were just blown away, when Dave walks you through everything he has done to create a written language and all of that, and turn around and teach people how to read and write in their own language. I mean, you're just stunned. And I think the thing that stands out when I hear you talking is Okay, so you don't have to be a linguist to go be a missionary in Papua New Guinea. There are many other things that can be done, right?
You can be an accountant and you can work on computers and you can be a store manager. And I mean, there's so many, if you can do it in the States, more than likely we have a need here as well. And that's what I saw going through the training was as we had like a work detail that we worked when we were going through the training where every afternoon we'd put in an hour or something like that. And I tried everything when we were doing it because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I tried like the plumbing, I tried building, I tried other things. And I was like, man, there's like nothing that I would like, yeah, I want to do this for my career, you know? And I'm a millennial, so we think in like 7-year terms
Right,
usually.
right. It's good.
but um,
And I'm not a boomer, so you
yeah, it
can't
was
say
like a
okay
few months
boomer to
before
me.
you're in between, huh?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so yeah, we're about just about finishing up with the training, and we're thinking, man, we've got like 3 months, and we're gonna be done with this, and they're gonna be like, oh, okay, you're ready to go, and we're like, no, we're not. Like, we haven't found what we want to do yet. So it was on a trip down to Mexico where we were going down to practice our language, basically learning how do you learn a language without anything being written down. And we were down there for 6 weeks. And on the way back, we came through the aviation headquarters in Missouri, not Missouri, but in Arizona to visit some of my wife's friends. We were only there for a day and a half. And I wasn't even going thinking, oh, we're going to go back into aviation. Like, it didn't even like cross my mind. But I went flying with one of the guys down there and just hung out with all the pilots that were in training, ready to go to the Philippines. And I was like, wow, this is it. Like, I should go back into aviation. I hadn't flown for 5, 6 years at that time. And I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, and my wife was like, okay, let's do it. I'm like, what's gonna add like 4 or 5 more years? She's like, I don't care. Like, if this is what you feel like this is where God's leading us, then let's go do that. So that's basically what we did, and we added another 5 years before we got to the field. But I think that 5 years was also time for me to grow up. So I think it was a good time.
That's huge. So if I think I understand everything correctly, you end up getting on the field somewhere around 2012 or so. And
2014.
okay, so 2014, you're over there in PNG. And you're, if I understand correctly, are you at the Lapilo base there outside of Goroka?
That's yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So um so you start flying and you get in the Quest Kodiak, and I think a lot of people don't understand just how cool the Kodiak is, just even in how it was created and the purpose behind how it was made. So tell us a little bit about that, because it's kind of a big deal. I remember watching this thing as it was being developed, and with mission aviation in mind in some ways.
Yeah, for sure. I think they were building it and they wanted to put all the best of everything at the time in this thing. I was just out at KVing at an airport, and I was just waiting for my passengers, and there was a Dash 8 that came, which is like a twin engine passenger airplane. So I went over and talked to the pilots and I said, hey, can I look inside your cockpit? And looking at all of their instrumentation compared to my instrumentation, I'm like, oh man, I'm glad I fly my airplane because it's like 40 plus years newer, and
Right.
we're flying in the same kind of weather and we have to fly all the same. I'm like, man, I'm glad I have what I have. And I'm glad that they put that extra stuff into the Kodiak because we have glass cockpits and we have synthetic vision, and you're basically flying a video game, and they're flying all steam gauges and archaic stuff. So, but yeah, it's a really cool plane. It's designed to go into these bush locations with ease, and we can carry, if we take all the seats out, we can carry around 2,200 pounds in the plane. So we can carry quite a bit of stuff.
Okay, so then let's jump ahead then and talk a little bit about YouTube. What prompted you to start filming your flights and putting them on YouTube? You know, what happened there? Because today, if you all watching don't know this, I think as of today, you have somewhere around 170,000 people that follow you on YouTube, and I'm one of the geeks as well that does that, and can't wait for your videos to come out twice a week. But what caused you to start this channel?
I've wanted to do a channel for 2 or 3 years. No, it's more than that. It's probably like 3 or 4 years now. I've kind of wanted to do something similar. I wanted to just do more of like vlogging stuff, just because that's what I enjoy watching on YouTube myself, is other people doing what they love doing. But to be honest, I remember seeing other pilots do similar channels like this years ago, and I was thinking, and there's one, Stevo Knievo, and um, he had like at the time like 250,000 subscribers, and I was thinking, man, who would watch this stuff? It's like so boring, like because I'm doing it. Why I don't really enjoy watching the flight channels, because I'm just like, it's just they're just sitting there talking to ATC, so I didn't really even think about going down this route and doing this type of kind of videos. But about a year ago, I had an Amazon business, and it was selling travel stuff, and it was just plummeting because, well, no travel
Right.
whatsoever. So I had more time at the time, and I'm almost like, man, I really want to do YouTube. I love making videos. I think I'm just going to just start and just see. This is like last March, and I'm just going to put out some videos and be really consistent for a year and just see what goes from there. If it doesn't go anywhere, my goal is to get 20,000 subscribers in a year. And I think I got that in a month and a half.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, maybe people do actually want to watch this stuff. So I guess I'll continue on. So, and
Yeah.
I just like making videos of whatever.
So okay, so when I look at your channel, and I'm going to ask you permission right now, would you mind if I play a little bit of one of your videos?
Oh, that's fine. Yeah,
Okay, all
completely.
right. I'm going to do a quick little screen share here, because this is the towards the end of your most watched video that you have. I think a landing in Ibai, if I have this correct. Does
Yeah,
that sound right? Um,
probably. Yep.
oh, you know what? I messed that up. So we'll try this again and get some sound that goes along with this. But I've gone here towards the end here as
So
you're
I'm not struggling to
coming in. You've already gone around once on this.
speed under control on final.
Estimating about 23.
So at this point, you've already tried and attempted one landing here, right?
We'll do SAR in a minute.
Yeah.
And you had to go around just short final, pretty much. I think one of the things I've loved is watching the comments of people that follow you on this video, especially. I mean, you got a lot of people. I think you earned a lot of people's respect at this moment, especially pilots out there.
2 knots of tailwind. This will be a little bit smoother. Three knots of tailwind. There's 4.
Now, at this point, in the time beforehand, you had there was a lot more rain starting to come down, wasn't there? And you had a lot of tailwind, right?
Okay, we're committed.
Yeah, we have a limit on how much tailwind we can land with in this location.
Yeah.
500.
All right. And look at my windshield. A little bit muddy out here this morning.
So I'll not bore you with watching the same video that you made and watched over and over and over. But at this point, it becomes obvious that you're a human right after this, because you can see the adrenaline that's kicked in and what's happened there. But in so many ways, I mean, look, this thing has 3.1 million views. It resonated with some people. What made that so popular that suddenly everyone started clicking that one?
Um, well, YouTube is basically kind of like newspapers back when kids had to go around selling them on the streets. They had big headlines and like catchy titles that would make people go, "Oh, I want to, what is that about?" But now, with subscriptions and things, they don't have to make up these crazy headlines anymore. Well, YouTube is like that. You have to have a clickable picture. You have to have a clickable title go that will like spark someone's interest. And yeah, it's kind of clickbaity, but at the same time, that's what makes people click on something. So I have a title and I have a thumbnail that I think draws people attention, like,
Yeah.
oh man, that's so out there, having mud on your windshield of an airplane, or saying something about panic. So I do a lot of research when I try to come up with titles and thumbnails using words and images that will draw people's attention and want to click on it, because it's asking a question, or it's making them think about something and trying to bring up some emotion in them. So
Yeah,
I think that was the case with that.
and I think that one, the other side of it is it probably got shared in a lot of other forums along the way, and that's when you see those views go way up when somebody else, out of respect, throws that in there. And I'm pretty sure I found that in a couple of different aviation forums that I follow as well. But there was a lot of mutual respect from various pilots, as you could spend all day reading all the comments that went along with that one video. But here you go. I mean, you're trained to do this. You've landed at this location tons of time, but still at the end of that one, you were shaking in your boots a little bit, right?
Yeah, I call them leg shakers, because like your adrenaline pumps so much that like literally your legs sometimes will just shake, because it's like it's pumping through you so much. And most of these places you go so many times that it's just like it's just like landing or taking off anywhere, and you don't think anything through it. But then you add the elements of tailwinds and possible rain and already having to go around, and yeah, it does wear on you after a while, for sure.
Okay, so to kind of get past this a little bit, I think one of the things I wanted to get at is, as I read people that comment here, you have lots of followers that are just, they think what you do is cool, and you get to see some of the most beautiful country in the world. Papua New Guinea is just an amazing place. They call it the land of the unexpected, and there's a reason for it. It seems like every time you turn around, there's just something new and different that you never would have imagined. And so people have kind of become attracted to watching, but there is a big question mark about the missionary side of it, right? And so what does that look like for you, as a Christian missionary that's reaching a largely secular audience? How has that been? Is this a ministry? And I kind of read some of the
I've had a lot
comments
of
that
people,
come along the way.
yeah, I've had a lot of people ask me that. And when I started this, no, it was not the intention to have it as a side ministry or to be able to share the gospel, because I wanted to hit a bigger audience. I was like, if I wanted to have a separate ministry, I can go do something else. Like, this started out of really fun. I enjoy making videos, and I wanted to hit a broader audience. And I don't share anything about what we do mission wise, specifically because I don't want to have to go down those roads with the organization I work with
Yes.
and have to answer questions on why I'm sharing pictures and things like that. So I wrote all of the missionaries we fly for and said, hey, this is what I'm doing. Do you mind if I share what your location? I don't say I'm flying missionaries. I say I'm flying people.
Yep.
I say I'm flying cargo. Most of my flights, I'm flying for missionaries and I'm flying their cargo, but I don't share anything about their ministry, because I don't want my organization saying, stop making the videos, because now there's a legitimate problem or concern or something like that. I'm really staying away from all of that and just make it aviation centered.
Yeah, and yet people obviously know what you're doing, and I've seen so many people say, "Well, man, you can make it commercially. You could make it on the big planes and all that," and yet there's a grander purpose in what's going on there for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Have you ever gone on a leak hike with the Augs? That was one of my amazing experiences.
No, but I have flown out and flown them a few times. It's been a few years since I've been out to their location,
Yeah.
but I have been out there.
Yeah. I don't know. Random question. Sorry. Okay. So these are just a couple of little geek questions for you. You have a camera on the back left horizontal stabilizer that turns, I think.
Yeah, I've got one on the wing and one on the stabilizer as well.
Okay. I'm really fascinated by this. Do you have to manually turn that? I mean, remotely turn that in
It's
at
all
that
post
time?
production, so
Okay.
it has a camera on either side of it. I think I have it here, but basically it's like a GoPro, but it has like a fisheye lens on both sides of the camera. So at all times it's picking up 360, and
Gotcha.
then it has a program that it comes with, and then you can just drag it wherever you want it to show throughout the video. So I'll, do like a one big cut,
Yeah.
but then if I like showed something specific, I can go back and make another little cut and like as well. It's a pretty cool thing. It's an Insta 360.
It kind of sounds like Google Street View.
Yeah, it's very much like that. Yep.
Okay. Well, I just had to ask that one thing. As we kind of wrap things up here, I wanted to see if there was, I'm looking down my list. Oh, how did you come across some of your sponsors? Are those people that are friends, people you've gotten to know? Did people start reaching out to you? And is it helping you? Most missionaries are out there raising support. And are you in a spot
Yeah.
where this has become something to keep you from having to do as much?
Yeah. So those sponsors are off of my Patreon page. So Patreon is like a way that I can share extra content and photos and extra videos for like a small paid subscription for like $5 a month. And so I make short little videos on the ground where I go to these places, sharing, something unique about the place, or
Yeah.
maybe a little bit of history about it, or showing some World War II item or something that's there on the airfield. And people can come subscribe to that basically. But the sponsors are through that. So either they have a business that they want to promote, or they just like what I'm doing and want to support me. And that's how I've gotten some sponsors.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, it's super creative, and I love to see it. You've given a lot of people a picture into a world that most people only wonder about and don't get to see. So I can tell you that we appreciate it, and a couple of the other friends of mine that watch along here. It's fun to hear about it all firsthand. And how as people back here in California, we're in Northern California. How can we be praying for you and your family moving forward in these times?
Let's see. I would say, like any family, just pray for our own family. Living in another culture, especially on a missionary base, can be stressful and wearing on your own family. I don't think people really well, I know they don't. They have no idea what it's like to live like with your church and commute to work with your church.
Yep.
And because that's kind of what it's like. We live on a center of maybe 250, other missionaries, and they're your neighbors. You commute to work with them. You see them at the store. You can see them at church.
Your
You
kids
just
all
never
go to
get away
school
from church.
together. Yeah, it's
And
all encompassing.
and that can be stressful and it can be wearing. So definitely just pray for that. Also, the plan is to head back to the States at the end of this year and start up helicopter training. So that will be a pretty big expense, like $70,000. So that God would be able to open up some doors to be able to raise the money for that as well. So yeah, that's a big expense, but I'm really looking forward to it. We are in desperate need for more pilots. Honestly, like we just got 3 new pilots this year, but they haven't started. So we have to be training those next 3 pilots. But right now we've only got 3 pilots. We have 1 helicopter and then 2 fixed wing. So yeah, we just have a lot going on right now in the aviation realm, and not a lot of time and not a lot of personnel.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to know. It helps us pray for the mission, pray for you guys. Yeah, how many you have? you guys have 2 Kodiaks? You have 3 Kodiaks? I've been trying to
We have
figure
3
that out.
Kodiaks.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have another pilot back in the States right now that's going to be starting helicopter training this summer, and then he'll be coming back as I'm going back to the States.
Gotcha.
And
All
he's
right.
also a Kodiak pilot, so yeah.
Well, and like I said, we have our church supports an MAF pilot who has been over in Papua Indonesia for quite a while on a Kodiak. So
Awesome.
It's fun to see that. And I remember when the last time I was over there, we were down at over at the SIL base down there at Ukarumpa, and
Yeah.
they had just received their first Kodiak. So that was a fun time getting to sit in that. I mean, it was kind of exciting times over there.
Awesome.
But I'm gonna. I know you have. You're probably heading out. And you flying today, or you have business to do today?
No, myself and another pilot are working on a training curriculum for our new pilots, so no flying today.
All right. Well, let me take a moment. We'll pray for you, and then we'll send you on our way, and we'll go on our way. But really appreciate you being here with us today, Ryan. It's neat to just see what's going on in someone else's life, and I guarantee you'll get a few more fans out of this today. But let me pray for you.
Thanks.
Lord, thank you in the name of Jesus for Ryan and what you're doing through him and his family over there in PNG. And I pray especially for that situation of just being in that tight community. There are incredible blessings. I mean, you have the closest friends that you may ever have, and yet it's like living in a fishbowl where everybody is in your business. Everybody knows everything about all of it. And sometimes that can be overwhelming. And so I just pray that you would give them the grace to walk through that. And I pray that you would give his kids the ability to see the big picture of what you're doing through their ministry, and to just treasure the years that they get to have growing up in PNG, and something that's unique that very few people get to experience. And then I just pray that your gospel would be proclaimed. So many more tongues and tribes that are yet to be reached, and so I just pray that you would use this avenue, aviation, to reach them, bring more pilots over there, and God, would you just have your way in Jesus' name, Amen. All right. Well, thank you very much again. And this is that point where I don't have any other announcements for you all this week. So I hope you'll be able to join us next week when we're back here on Monday at 10. Meanwhile, have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.